On July 2, 2022, the Fujing 001 crane vessel owned by Fujing Ocean Technology Co., Limited, Fujing, sank after drifting and colliding with a wind turbine in a wind farm during a typhoon prevention anchorage in the No. 2 ship waiting area in Yagjiang, Guangdong. 4 people were rescued, 25 died, and 1 is missing. On May 31, the State Maritime Administration released an investigation report on the Fujing 001 wind disaster accident in Yagjiang, stating that the accident was caused by a typhoon causing the powerless crane vessel to drift and collide with a wind turbine, and that the relevant companies and vessels did not evacuate personnel as required, lied about the number of people on board, and failed to request assistance in a timely manner after the vessel drifted, resulting in a major loss of life. The actual controller of Fujing 001, Fujing, bears direct responsibility for the major personnel casualties, and Yangfu Co., Limited, Guangdong Energy Qingzhou Offshore Wind Power Co., Limited, Qingzhou Wind Power, and others bear management responsibilities. Fujing is the actual controller of Fujing 001, and he also directly or indirectly controls companies such as Jiangsu Huijing Jian Engineering Technology Co., Limited, Jiangsu Huijing, and Shenzhen Huijing Ocean Technology Co., Limited, Shenzhen Huijing. This incident involves 2 listed companies, Yangfu Co., Limited, 300,712.SZ, and Guangdong Electric Power Development Co., Limited, 000539.SZ. After the investigation report was released, neither of the 2 companies made any relevant announcements. On the afternoon of June 6, Guangdong Electric Power Development Co., Limited, responded to inquiries from China Business Network by phone, stating that there was no announcement because the information disclosure standards were not met. Yangfu Co., Limited also stated that the announcement standards were not met, and the company was not primarily responsible for the incident. It is understood that the investigation report clearly identifies this incident as a wind disaster rather than a workplace safety accident, which is the main reason why the 2 listed companies do not need to assume greater responsibilities or make announcements. However, based on the information disclosed in the investigation report, there are still many areas in this tragic event that are worth reflecting on, such as the failure of the involved ship to evacuate personnel as required, lying about the number of people on board, and concealing the actual situation of drifting. Yangfu Co., Limited is the lessee of Fujing 001. According to construction needs, Yangfu Co., Limited arranged for Fujing 001 and related supporting vessels to arrive in the waters of the Yagjiang Qingzhou Offshore Wind Power Plant in Guangdong on May 11, 2022. Starting from May 29, 2022, they began to participate in the construction of the Qingzhou Wind Power Plant project owned by the owner, Guangdong Electric Power Development Co., Limited. The Qingzhou Wind Power Plant project, which includes the Qingzhou Wind Power Plant 1 and Qingzhou Wind Power Plant 2, is located in the southern waters of Shaba Town, Yangtze County, Yagjiang City, Guangdong Province, with a total construction scale of 1 million kilowatts and a total dynamic investment of 17.107 billion yuan. According to the investigation report, Jiangsu Longyuan Zhenhua Ma, IEE Engineering Co., Limited, Longyuan Zhenhua, is responsible for the construction and installation of wind turbines and offshore booster stations for the Qingzhou Wind Power Plant project. Yangfu Co., Limited is responsible for the construction of wind turbine foundations for the Qingzhou Wind Power Plant project. The contract stipulates that it is responsible for the overall safety production of the wind turbine foundation construction site, and bears the main responsibility for the safety production of the construction project. On June 29, 2022, at 8 a.m., the typhoon forecast information provided by the Guangdong Provincial Meteorological Bureau showed that the coastal sea surface wind in Yagjiang City would gradually increase to level 8 to 9 with gusts up to level 10 from June 30. According to the investigative report released in the investigation report, at 14:11 on the afternoon of June 29, Chunai Tao, the safety director of the Fujing 001 project department of Jiangsu Huijing, compiled a list of 35 people who were to remain on board and those who were to be evacuated at the request of Li Changlong, the general captain and manager of the ship management department of Jiangsu Huijing. He sent the list to the Strong is Victory WeChat group, Fujing 001 work group, and told his colleagues, these two lists cannot be reported to the maritime authorities, but can be reported to the owner. On June 30, 2022, at 13:55, Fujing, the project director of Longyuan Zhenhua, learned that there were 35 people, actually 36 people, on board Fujing 001, and immediately called Wu Jianliang, the legal representative and general manager of Jiangsu Huijing, asking him to arrange a mooring boat to evacuate all personnel except for the minimum number of people left on board, 9 people. Wu Jianliang then arranged for the mooring boat to evacuate people, but only 6 people were evacuated, leaving 30 people on board. At 20:20 that night, Fujing contacted Wu Jianliang again to convey the request to evacuate all personnel. Subsequently, Xu Jun, the actual control of Fujing 001, said in the group chat, "We have 36 crew members, which is within the allowable range. I am speechless. Outsiders are instructing insiders. We are not a platform, we are a ship." At 22:41, Wu Jianliang said in the work group, "Let's first report the document for the evacuation of all personnel on the ship and retain the towboat. Any high-frequency calls from Fujing 001 or other anchored ships must not be answered. If there are any phone inquiries, answer th. And they are on shore." At 22:54, Wu Jianliang said in the work group again, "Any high-frequency calls from Fujing 001 or the 2 anchored ships must not be answered. Anyone who receives phone inquiries should answer that they are on shore." On July 1, 2022, at 0:08, Chu Naitao made a list of evacuation of all personnel and submitted it to the Longyuan Zhenhua Project Department through a colleague. Subsequently, the Longyuan Zhenhua Project Department reported to the Qingzhou Wind Power Project Department and the Guangdong Electric Power Design Project Department that there were no personnel on board Fujing 001. The Qingzhou Wind Power Project Department then reported to Guangdong Energy Group that all personnel on board Fujing 001 had been evacuated. At 4 p.m. that day, the duty personnel of the Yangjiang Port Maritime Office called out the name of Fujing 001 through a very high-frequency wireless phone, but there was no response. They immediately contacted the ship by phone and asked them to implement typhoon prevention measures and strengthen duty watch. After failing to evacuate personnel as RIC-ed and lying about the number of people on board, Fujing 001 sailed into the Sea of Tragedy. On July 2, 2022, at 0:05, when the maximum force of the 4th position anchor steel cable of Fujing 001 exceeded 425 tons, it immediately slipped out of the winch, and the ship drifted anchor to the southwest. At 0:45, Huang Chundong, the captain of the ship, called the Yangjiang Maritime Search and Rescue Center to report that the ship had lost one anchor cable, but had deployed 2 additional anchors and was stable. The Yangjiang Maritime Search and Rescue Center reminded them that they could contact the Nanjia 113 for assistance if necessary. However, at 1:09 a.m., Xu Jun denied the suggestion of his colleague to request assistance from the Nanjia 113 to bring a cable. At 1:37 a.m., the Yangjiang Maritime Search and Rescue Center notified the Nanjia 113 to go to guard Fujing 001. At 3 a.m., when the Nanjia 113 arrived at the scene and called Fujing 001 through a very high-frequency wireless phone, Fujing 001 claimed that the situation was stable and no assistance was needed. According to the investigation report, the sea wind reached 12 to 13 levels in the early morning, with extremely poor visibility. During the process of drifting anchor, Fujing 001 collided with wind turbines 8, 20, and 96 of the Shaba wind power plant. In the high wind and waves, the right side of the ship collided with the foundation piles of wind turbines multiple times, causing damage and cracking in the middle of the ship. The foundation pile of the wind turbine was jammed into the crack in the hull, and the ship gradually tilted to the right and sank. It was not until 7:27 a.m. on the morning of July the 2nd that the Yangjiang Maritime Search and Rescue Center Ned from the person in charge of the Longyuan Zhenhua Project Department that there were actually 30 people in distress on board Fujing 001, and then reported to the Guangdong Maritime Search and Rescue Center. Soon, the Guangdong Maritime Search and Rescue Center launched a Leave-LI emergency response to the maritime emergency, and established an emergency response command for Fujing 001, directing all parties to carry out search and rescue efforts. However, on the rough sea, with the wind at about 14 levels on site, the stern of Fujing 001 lost power and drifted away from the foundation pile of wind turbine 96. All 30 people on board gathered on the bridge. Later, waves hit the bridge of Fujing 001, and 27 people were washed into the sea. At noon on the same day, a rescue helicopter rescued 3 people from the ship. Subsequently, the stern of Fujing 001 gradually tilted to the right and sank. In the end, the accident caused the sinking of Fujing 001 after it broke apart, resulting in 25 deaths and 1 missing person on board. According to the investigation report, the objective cause of Fujing 001 drifting anchor, colliding with the wind turbine, and ultimately breaking and sinking during the direct impact of the typhoon was due to the typhoon. At the same time, the responsibility determination in the report shows that Xu Jun and Jiangsu Weijing bear direct responsibility for the major casualties on board Fujing 001, while Yangfu Electric Power, Longyuan Zhenhua, Qingsha Wind Power, and others bear management responsibility. The investigation report pointed out that the UAL controllers of Fujing 001, Xu Jun, Jiangsu Weijing, and the ship's management personnel did not evacuate personnel on board as required, and lead about the number of people on board. After the ship drifted anchor for the first time, Xu Jun instructed the crew to conceal the AC. Chual situation of the drifting anchor, denied the suggestion of the company's management personnel to request external assistance, missed the opportunity for rescue. These are the main reasons for the major casualties. Yangfu Stock Project Department did not supervise personnel to evacuate as required by the Special Typhoon Prevention Plan, nor did they check and verify the evacuation situation of personnel. The Longyuan Zhenhua Project Department did not arrange personnel to count the number of people at the evacuation point according to the Special Typhoon Prevention Plan. After learning that Fujing 001 did not evacuate all personnel as required by the construction unit, they did not report to the Qingsha Wind Power Project Department or urge corrective action. The Qingsha Wind Power Project Department did not effectively supervise the evacuation of personnel according to the requirements of the Special Typhoon Emergency Plan, and did not know the actual number of people on board. In addition, after learning that Fujing 001 did not evacuate all personnel as required, Qingsha Wind Power did not fully report to Guangdong Wind Power Company and Guangdong Provincial Energy Group Co. Limited. The above-mentioned enterprises did not effectively supervise the evacuation of personnel on board Fujing 001, which is a secondary cause of the major casualties. In addition, the investigation also found some problems, including that Jiangsu Weijing did not have the qualification for construction labor services and engineering construction, nor did it obtain a safety production license, and sign the Fujing 001 ship operation agreement with Yangfu Electric Power, which may violate relevant regulations. Yangfu Electric Power subcontracted the wind turbine foundation construction and labor operations that it contracted to Jiangsu Weijing, which did not have the qualification for engineering construction and labor services, which may also violate relevant regulations. After this major accident, Yangfu Electric Power terminated its cooperation with the Fujing 001 ship. Yangfu Electric Power's 2022 annual report did not directly mention the Fujing 001 ship or the 7.2 accident, but mentioned cooperation with Fujian Huijing and Jiangsu Huijing. During the reporting period, the ship was unable to continue working due to the impact of the typhoon during the typhoon prevention and avoidance period, and both parties have negotiated to terminate the cooperation. The total amount of accounts receivable on the year-end balance sheet was 291 million yuan, and a bad debt provision of 40.04 million yuan was made. The provision ratio was 13.78%. Some investors are concerned about whether Yangfu Electric Power can recover the accounts receivable as scheduled. In response, Yangfu Electric Power said in an interview with First Financial that after the incident, the company signed a cooperation termination agreement with Xu Jun, and the remaining prepaid payments will be recovered through ship insurance claims according to the agreement. It is reported that the Fujing 001 has been fully insured by the ship's owner for an insured amount of $75 million. After the accident, the ship owner has interested a law firm to handle the insurance claims. Regarding the issue of suspected illegal subcontracting mentioned in the investigation report, Yangfu Electric Power stated in its response to First Financial that the company is actively cooperating and waiting for the relevant department's determination and processing opinions. In the 2023 annual tracking rating report of Guangdong Electric Power A, it mentioned that Guangdong Electric Power has not had any safety production accidents above the general level in the past 3 years, and the overall performance is at the industry average level. When explaining this statement, the 7.2 accident was mentioned on July 2, 2022, during the typhoon prevention and avoidance period. The construction floating crane ship Fujing 001 in the Yangjiang offshore wind power project encountered difficulties due to anchor chain breakage and drifting, and the accident happened when the ship was neither at the construction site nor during construction hours.